Just as San Antonio records its largest coronavirus caseload in weeks, a discussion about bringing more students back into the classroom is on the table. Last week, the TEA quietly updated its protocol and is now allowing districts to remove students from remote learning if they're struggling academically. But for San Antonio Alliance President Alejandra Lopez,
It is completely counterintuitive.
it's not the right answer.
The idea that a student is failing, so we need to bring them into a dangerous conditions at the school building is completely backwards from how we should be thinking about this crisis as a whole.
The TEA says a district can remove a student from remote learning if they have a class average of 70 or below or 3 or more unexcused absences. Educators would have to submit proof of the student's struggles. Parents need to be notified 2 weeks prior, and they also need to agree to the change.
People are very, very concerned.
Lopez says SAISD is already reaching out to teachers trying to identify those struggling students, but SAISD says that's just one of the options. In a letter to staff, the superintendent stated that schools are requesting flexibility to offer measures like tutoring, Saturday or twilight school, and targeted in-person learning. But for the district's teachers union, the answer lies outside of the classroom.
We need to invest in the infrastructure and resources to make virtual learning successful. We're at 8.4 positivity rate. We should be preparing for schools potentially being shut to limit community spread, not thinking about how we can rush more students in.
Jaleesa Rosari, KENS 5 Eyewitness News.